Hello, my dear students. It's me again, Miss Jazz. We finally have a new video to continue our lectures in our subject Macro Perspective in Tourism and Hospitality. So I hope that you're safe wherever you are, and I hope that you have a good access to the internet as you watch this video. So in this video, we are going to discuss the origins of tourism and hospitality in the Philippines. I am going to keep our storytelling very short and just highlight some of the most important events, characters that you have to remember. I'll be sharing with you some trivias as well and some mind-blowing facts that you might want to learn about the history of tourism in our country. So apart from that, since I'm going to keep this record short, I'll be linking down below some of the references, the websites that I used to do further research on. So if you'd like to go back in time and revisit the history of tourism in our country, these are the websites that I highly recommend for you to visit. These things are not necessary for you to memorize and remember for your upcoming exam, but these are really nice to know facts should you want to learn more about the history and the development of tourism and hospitality in the Philippines. Our objectives for this lesson is to gain an understanding and appreciation of the origins of tourism in our country and identify the factors that favor the growth of tourism and hospitality in the Philippines. Now, I'll be creating another video, so kindly stand by for part 2 where I will discuss the factors that favor the growth of tourism and hospitality. Okay? To best begin our discussion on this topic, simulan natin sa pinakaumpisa, kay Ferdinand Magellan. So Ferdinand Magellan is an explorer, a navigator, who first arrived in the Philippines in 1521. So he was the one who discovered our thriving civilization at the time. Meron tayong tinatawag na Magellan's Route, the trail of the first voyage around the world. It is a universal and global road because its itinerary is developed throughout the main oceans and all continents. Magellan's Route is the way traced by nautical expedition made by the First World Circumnavigation. Ang ibig sabihin ng circumnavigation, unang nakaikot sa buong mundo. Madaming naidulot na maganda yung exploration ni Ferdinand Magellan. Maliban sa pagkakadiscover niya sa ating bansa, sa Pilipinas, sa kanya rin nagsimula yung concept of globalism na tinatawag and the universality of knowledge. Magellan is the person who confirmed the roundness of our Earth. So, ibig sabihin, siya yung unang nakaikot sa buong mundo. Siya yung nakapagpatunay that we are all connected dahil bilog ang mundo. So, yun yung ibig natin sabihin dun sa First World Circumnavigation, yung pag-ikot, yung circle. Thanks to the discovery of Magellan's Strait and the crossing of the Pacific Ocean, new models of expansion, commercial and economic, were known involving countries from all continents. So, this model survives today, at yan yung tinatawag natin na globalization. Many of these ancient cultures, traditions are still in practice today, together with the influences that have been introduced by other cultures. This has made the Philippines an interesting destination where various cultures from different eras come together. Actually, ang magandang naidulot ng pagkakadiscover ni Magellan sa ating bansa ay tayo yung naging mid or port ng mga produkto na nanggagaling sa mga kung saan-saan. So, isa sa mga rason kung bakit nanatili sa Pilipinas ang mga Espanyol at kung bakit naging importante ang role ng Pilipinas sa trade noong unang panahon is because tayo yung naging port nila. Tayo yung pumagitna dun sa kalakaran. Ang tawag po doon was the galleon trade. So, galleons or wooden boats sailed between Mexico and the Philippines and from the Philippines to China, China to the Philippines. Laging tayo yung pumapagitna ng trade. So, ano-ano ba yung mga dala-dala nilang produkto noon? They have porcelain, silk, ivory, spices, and other exotic goods that come from China. Doon na rin nagkaroon ng importansya ang pera or yung tinatawag nila na New World Silver. So during the heyday of the galleon trade, Manila became one of the world's greatest ports, serving as a focus for trade between China and Europe. So the Spaniards in Manila came to depend on the annual vessel So much that when a ship went down at sea or was captured by English pirates, the colony was plunged into economic depression. The galleon trade had a negative effect on economic developments in the Philippines. So the importance of the trade declined in the 18th century as powers began to trade directly. Ibig sabihin, hindi na sila dumadaan sa Pilipinas. They finally learned how to travel directly back and forth. So doon na nag-start na nag-weaken yung trade or yung pagdaan nila dito sa port natin sa Philippines. Now let's talk about the first ever hotel in the Philippines naman. As far as my research have gone, it's difficult to pinpoint the oldest hotel in the Philippines. So are we going by structure or by establishment? In Vigan, for example, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, there are several houses that are over a century old have been turned into guest houses. In 1873, Villa Angela Heritage House, for example, was converted to an inn in the year 2000. The Ciudad Fernandina Hotel, which used to be a home of a Chinese mestizo family, was built in 1758. Hotel Luna, now a hotel museum, was constructed in 1882 but became a hotel in 2014. So old similar houses turned into hotels can be found in Batangas, Baguio, and Corregidor. Pero very rare yung establishment na inopen siya talaga as hotel noong araw pa lang. So if you will notice, itong mga examples na to, these are old houses, mga heritage sites na kinonvert lang nila or nirenovate lang nila and they turned them into a hotel or an establishment where people can check in para mas maganda nila ma-experience yung culture at yung heritage ng lugar. Kasi nga, maganda pa, na-preserve nila. So yung mga houses na ganon, very ideal siya to be converted into a hotel. But if you'll think about it, medyo mahirap na makahanap ng establishment na talagang it was built as a hotel. Like early on, hotel na talaga siya nung itinayo siya. So yung pinaka-popular, pinaka-kilala na alam natin is the Manila Hotel. So most of these hotels like the Manila Hotel are really concentrated in Metro Manila, which is the seat of power during that time, during the colonial times, where the vacationers or the diplomats or the people from the American government would come to visit. At saka yung Manila Hotel, isa sa mga rason kung bakit dun siya pinlace sa may Luneta was because yun nga, nandun yung Manila Bay and kitang-kita nila yung mga steamships na dumarating during that time. Alam nyo, very special sa akin tong Manila Hotel dahil ito ang aking first job. I was very fortunate to be accepted here in this hotel as a fresh graduate and my job here was as a front desk receptionist. I have a lot of beautiful memories in this hotel. I know the ins and outs of this hotel. Napakababait ng aking mga nakatrabaho at mga superiors dito sa Manila Hotel sa totoo lang. Kaya very, very special sa akin tong hotel na to. Anyway, this historic 5-star hotel is located in Manila, malapit sa Manila Bay, malapit sa Luneta Park. So this hotel is the oldest premier hotel in the Philippines, built in 1909, which is actually a rival to the Malacanang Palace, the official residence of the President of the Philippines. It was opened at the commemoration of American independence on July 4, 1912. The hotel complex was built on a reclaimed area of 35,000 square meters at the northwestern end of Rizal Park. Okay. Its penthouse served as the residence of General Douglas MacArthur during his tenure as the military advisor of the Philippine Commonwealth from 1935 to 1941. So, eto ang trivia. Unang naitayo ang Manila Hotel bago pa may unang nakarating na eroplano dito sa Pilipinas. Kaya actually maganda yung kwento ng unang pagdating dito ng mga Pan Am air clippers kasi nung time na yon, yung mga tao, very excited sila na makita yung pag-land dito nung unang eroplano. Nandun sila along Manila Bay, yung iba nandun sila sa may Manila Hotel, kitang-kita nila yung paglapag or yung pagdating nung aircraft Another trivia kung bakit nandun sa may Manila Bay yung landing ng eroplano na yun is because ang tawag sa kanila ay flying boats. So yung pinakapaa ng mga aircraft na yun are actually built for water. The reason is because wala pang runway noong araw. Wala pa tayong mahabang runway kung saan makakalapag ang mga eroplano. In fact, pagdating ng eroplano, ang daming mga boat na nakaabang at nag-welcome dun sa bagong dating na aircraft. And that is the Pan Am Air Clipper.
We are about to establish and put into operation the government of the Commonwealth of the Philippines as ordained by the Congress of the United States.
In 1935, the Philippines approached a significant milestone towards independence as it transitioned from the insular government as part of a U.S. territory to the Commonwealth of the Philippines, as enacted by the Tidings-McDuffie Act of 1934. The act mandated U.S. recognition of independence of the Philippine Islands as a separate and self-governing nation after a 10-year transition period. In September of that year, presidential elections were held and Manuel L. Quezon was proclaimed president. Okay, so that was a pretty big deal, right? So the Philippines had been under the Spanish rule for 400 years and then as an American colony for another 35 years and now was on the brink of getting its independence. But another event that year would promote the Philippines onto the world platform with another inaugural trans-Pacific flight of the Pan-American Airways Clippers. Ito na yung mga Clippers or flying boats during that time na unang-unang nakarating at nakalipad sa Pilipinas. American Clippers were able to reach Manila for 2 weeks on board the Pan-American Airways Air Clippers. China Clipper, as the first of 3 Martin M134 engine flying boats built for Pan American Airways and was used to inaugurate the first commercial trans-Pacific air mail service from San Francisco to Manila on November 22, 1935. On November 29, the airplane reached its destination Manila after traveling via Honolulu, Midway Island, Wake Island, and Sumay, Guam, and delivered over 110,000 pieces of mail. The China Clipper remained in Pan Am service until January 8, 1945, when it was destroyed in a crash in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. Crashed on approach due to excessive speed and rate of descent. Philippine Clipper entered service with Pan American in 1936. It was inaugurated as a passenger service between the United States and Manila in October 1936. Americans were able to reach Manila after 2 weeks on board the Pan American Airways Air Clippers. The Philippine Clipper that crashed on the morning of January 21, 1943 in Northern California was carrying 10 U.S. Navy personnel from Pearl Harbor, Hawaii to San Francisco, California. The aircraft crashed in poor weather into mountainous terrain southwest of California. Alam niyo ba kung anong ibig sabihin ng colorum? Hanggang ngayon meron ito eh. May mga mangilan-ngilan na gumagawa pa rin ito eh. Hindi lang mga puting van to. Kahit ibang kulay ng mga sasakyan nagagamit ito. Ito ang tinatawag natin ng mga unlisted or illegal use ng mga private vehicles for public use. Diba? Ibig sabihin, it's a private vehicle na pinagkakakitaan nila, kumukuha sila ng mga pasahero, at pumapasada sila. Diba? Minsan parang point to point pa nga. Tawag natin sa mga legal na gano'n, ang tawag natin ngayon sa kanila carpool. Right? These are rented vans. Pero noong araw, at actually may ilan nga ngayon na may mga illegal use pa rin na pumapasada sila or tumatanggap kasi sila ng mga pasahero pero hindi sila mga registered public transport. Okay. So anyway, itong colorum na to during the earlier days, it became a more comfortable and faster means of travel for tourism and hospitality in the Philippines kasi wala pa mga travel agency noon, wala pa mga tour guide noon. So, ang ginawa ng mga entrepreneurs noon, meron silang mga private vehicles kung saan dinadala or pinapasakay nila yung mga turista para dala nila sa mga iba't ibang attractions dito sa atin. However, it was tolerated by the government at the time since tourism was not yet developed. Even though there were tourists arriving from other countries, there were no tour operators nor travel agencies in the country. Steamships offices endorsed tourists to private cars and coach operators who rented their vehicles directly to tourists. The drivers of these vehicles then served as the tour guides even without formal training. The first Tourism and Hospitality Association was organized in 1952. This was the Philippine Tourist and Travel Association, or PTTA. It was organized to put together all existing travel establishments, both serving domestic and international travelers. It was funded by the government to promote the country's tourism and hospitality industry. Later, the government organized the Board of Travel and Tourist Industry, or BTTI, to regulate, supervise, and control the tourist industry and to subsidize the PTTA as its promotional arm. In 1973, President Ferdinand Marcos created a new cabinet-level Department of Tourism by splitting the Department of Trade and Tourism into two separate departments, including the new Department of Tourism, the agency Philippine Tourism Authority, or PTA, and the Philippine Convention Bureau, or PCB, were created. The Department of Tourism was renamed the Ministry of Tourism as a result of the shift in the form of government pursuant to the enforcement of the 1973 Constitution. In 1986, under Executive Orders Numbers 120 and 120A signed by President Corazon Aquino, the Department of Tourism was reorganized, and correspondingly, the Convention Bureau was named the Philippine Convention and Visitors Corporation, and the Intramuros Administration was attached. In 1998, the Department of Tourism assumed a prominent role in the culmination of centennial celebration of the country's independence from the Spanish Empire. In 2003, the Department of Tourism initiated one of its most successful tourism promotion, WOW Philippines, under Secretary, or now Senator, Richard Gordon. The latest improvements in the tourism industry in the country came about with the passage of Republic Act No. 9593, or the Tourism Act of 2009. A temporary tourist boom existed in the Philippines in the early 70s. This was because of favorable conditions such as safety, better services, sanitation facilities, more financial support from the government, and active cooperation of the private sectors. Tourism and hospitality now in the Philippines is a result of continuous development and promotion. The Department of Tourism has developed plans and programs to ensure that the tourist entry, stay, and departure are harmonious and positive. So among these are the following: increased visitor arrivals, especially from nearby countries. Increased tourism and hospitality receipts through longer stays. Usually, ang duration ng pag-travel ng mga tourists is 3 days and 2 nights. But of course, the longer they stay, the more expenses they will incur. Mas mahaba silang nandito, mas kumikita tayo. So the target duration is really at 11 days or at least more than 10 days, no? And higher spending per day, estimated at $110 per day, nasa 6,000-ish, 6,200, which can be accomplished by more attractive destinations and tours, more shopping, dining, getting not just into the budget of the traveler but also the upscale markets. Expand domestic tourism and hospitality through more promotions, cheaper tour packages, and new facilities, especially for the lower income segments. Expand the capacity for tourism and hospitality by promoting more private sector investments. Improve the standards of service through the expansion of training, programs for the professionalization of the tourism and hospitality management and labor force. Program major tourism and hospitality infrastructure projects. Engage in major tourism and hospitality estate and resort development. Classify facilities in tourist sites according to international standards. Strictly enforce the tour facility standards. Promote self-regulation within the different sectors of the tourism and hospitality industry. Complete the National Tourism Plan and a Destination Tourism Plan. Encourage consumer advertising in selected markets, work closely with the private sector in product development, develop and strengthen linkages with the local governments, the private sector, the general public through tourism and hospitality councils. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something out of this. Stay tuned for part 2. That's it. Thank you so much. I'll see you in class.